Hi everybody, my name's Amelia and welcome back to my channel. So first off, I want to say sorry for the weird lighting and the redness in my face. I was supposed to film a video earlier today and for whatever reason I'm just feeling very burnt out and I could not sit down just to film. And then, like an hour or so ago, I was watching Lisa Papez's hot takes video that she made a month ago? 6 days ago? Time doesn't exist. But I was watching her video and she showed this AI art tarot deck and I thought, you know what, I've got thoughts. I have ideas and opinions and I wanted to have a conversation with you guys about AI art in tarot. So anyway, I want to keep this introduction short, so before we launch into everything, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up because it really helps out me and my little channel, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this, and without further ado, we're just gonna launch right into the good stuff. Okay, so first and foremost, before we really get into the nitty-gritty on AI art, specifically when it applies to tarot and tarot decks, oracle decks, that sort of thing, I think we need to understand how AI art is used. I'm gonna say AI art a lot and I feel like I'm gonna mess it up at some point. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are sitting here watching this video and you're like, okay, hold on, I know how AI art works and how it's used and how it's made, etc. You don't have to tell me all the details about it. And for a lot of us, that's true, but there are people out there who genuinely do not know how AI art is created. So for those of you who don't know, AI stands for artificial intelligence, and it's essentially like a robot that creates images, words, stories, whatever you want it to create. Now we can think of AI as kind of like a generator of sorts when it comes to creating like conversations and creating images and whatever you want it to create pretty much. If you think back to like the old school chat box type of things where you could like chat with a robot, it's kind of like that. In fact, Bing actually has a new AI chatbot, which is very, very realistic. But that's not what this video is necessarily about. I'm just pointing out that AI has been around for a long time and it's continuing to grow and become more perfected as time goes on. The way that an AI art generator or bot creates art is basically the algorithm or the AI is either given a bunch of data, so a lot of images, to sift through and look at, so that way it has it stored in its memory as a reference for what it can make, or it scours the internet for inspiration and just all the data that it would need to create that image itself. An AI art generator might have, say, 50,000 paintings, photos, drawings from other artists that it would look at, analyze, and then store that data in its memory. It uses that data to look for patterns, and from those patterns, it can create art for itself. So if you had, say, 300 paintings of a rocky mountain and you told the AI to create a painting of a rocky mountain, it's going to use those 300 images and then find the similarities between them, or just take bits and pieces of each of those images that it was given and create its own version of a rocky mountain. So essentially, AI art bots or AI art generators mimic real life art and real life paintings that we give to it, whether that be from saying, here's the internet, here's the World Wide Web, go ahead and find something that fits this description and then create your own version, or we give it its own like predetermined images to choose from and we kind of narrow it down. Either way, AI art is essentially just an algorithm. It's a bot that can create art from what it sees. And herein lies the first issue with AI art that a lot of people have. I think it's important to say that before we jump into that topic specifically, that a lot of people are kind of either on the fence on AI or really dislike it or don't find issue with it. I mean, I guess that's how any topic works. But one thing is, a lot of people, especially if you're on TikTok or on YouTube, you might have heard people talking about AI and its uses and where it's heading for the future. There's sort of this dystopian reality tied to AI, even though in the past, there's also been a lot of good that's come from AI. There is this sort of caveat to bringing more artificial intelligence into our lives. I think of AI a lot like a self-checkout machine. I used to work at Target. I was a cashier prior to getting a ton of self-checkout machines, and I used to believe that self-checkout would never take over my job as a cashier because I constantly had to fix the machines. Well, recently, the Target I used to work at underwent a huge renovation, and all of the old self-checkout machines were taken away, destroyed, I don't know, and they brought in new machines, and these new machines are so much better at doing their job than the old ones were. And now the cashiers have been cut back. We have fewer physical lanes that you can cash out at. Sometimes there's not even a real person at the lane to check you out, and there are so many more self-checkouts. We used to only have 4 self-checkout machines. Now there are, I want to say 20 or 18, somewhere in there. We went from 4 self-checkout machines to 18, and one person just overlooks that. Well, technically 2, but that's because it's divided up, but you know, one person overlooks like multiple machines. And the machines handle the whole thing. That would be kind of an example of how technology has advanced and has sort of interfered in the workplace, but it's also made it better. It means that that means that the company itself has to hire fewer people to do the job. But we also can look at the downside of that, and so the average person has just lost their job. That's also the downside. But anyway, a lot of people are talking and discussing AI, specifically when it comes to art, and that's what I'm going to try to focus this video on, because AI covers a lot of things, and it is pretty crazy what AI is capable of. But I'm just going to focus on the art because I want to keep this tarot related and oracle related, and talk about how there are a lot of people out there, both buyers and creators, who are not so happy with this AI art phenomenon entering the tarot landscape. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, okay, AI art is just those fun little filters that we can use on TikTok, it's just something that you can generate online, it's silly, it's very young, it's in its infancy, AI is not very good, and you might be thinking to yourself, because it's not very good, nobody's going to create a tarot deck with it, you can't, or that nobody who did create a tarot deck, it wouldn't look very good and people wouldn't buy it. That's not true. There are already AI art tarot decks out there. It doesn't have amazing reviews, and we could argue that some of those are artists who feel like they feel scared because they could be out of a job, and we could say that it's also people who knew that it was AI and had a bias going into purchasing the item, or who specifically purchased the item just so they could leave a bad review because they don't like AI. I mean, that's a possibility, but I think that the fact that it doesn't have very good reviews is something that we should pay attention to. I'm sure there are mass market versions. I believe there is, but I didn't find it when I typed in AI art tarot deck or AI tarot deck. If you guys happen to know what that deck is, I'm pretty sure there's a mass market one that just came out. Please let me know in the comments below, but I know there is one, and I forget which publishing house did it, but I'm fairly certain, unless I'm going crazy. But this tarot deck is being sold for almost $50. It's $47.99 here in the US. And honestly, I think it's really pretty. I really do. I think AI art looks very magical. It's very like, I don't know, it's space themed. It's really cool. I really do think AI art is very pretty. However, it is AI, and I have a personal bias against it because, well, we'll get into those reasons as we go on in the video. But this was just an example of how AI art is already being used in tarot decks and oracle decks. It's being used not just by brands, but it's also being used by smaller independent creators and being used by bigger corporations and publishing houses. I think one reason that it's used by a lot of smaller creators is simply because it's fast, it's easy, and it doesn't really require like a lot of time or materials to make. It also is great for people who just don't have that artistic talent or don't have the time to pour their energy and resources into creating a deck. That's not to say that it doesn't take any time to create a AI generated tarot deck, because you do have to find very specific keywords to tell the AI so it can create an image that feels appropriate for what you're going for. However, it is far less time consuming than creating your own tarot deck, especially if you're an artist who creates your art with like paintbrushes, oil paints, doodles, drawings, penmanship, whatever you use. A lot of tarot decks that are created by traditional artists take a lot of time and a lot of effort. One comment that stood out to me on this particular deck was that it felt like a cash grab. And I know we've been seeing a lot of cash grabby decks from big publishers especially. I mean, I follow Wicked Moonlight, who reviews tarot decks, and one of this one series of decks, I don't even remember who the publisher was, I'll put it up on the screen because I will fact check myself, but they created like Skyrim, Marvel, all of these decks, maybe the Lord of the Rings one, I don't know. But there was like a bunch of decks created by this one brand, and a lot of it felt like a cash grab, and there were a lot of mistakes in the decks. So cash grabs for tarot decks, especially today when there are so many decks coming out and so many new artists and authors coming up and publishing their tarot content and stuff. With it being such a popular thing, I'm not surprised that some people are going to take advantage of it and just use it as a cash grab. But that is the main argument of these AI art tarot decks, is that they tend to feel kind of cash grabby because you can just create it very quickly. And you don't have to put a lot of thought into it because you can just take the AI, give it a phrase, and hope that it comes out with something that looks really nice. And like I said, I do think it looks really cool. But my question, and I think a lot of questions that a lot of artists and traditional artists have over this, is how long does it take to make, and where do these images come from? So I am going to segue into that next point, but before I do, I wanted to mention that yes, AI art tarot decks are a thing, and they are becoming more popular as AI, grows and changes and better develops. And at the moment, a lot of these decks are listed as AI. They're artificial intelligence decks, that's what they're called. But technically, an artist doesn't have to say that their deck is AI. They could just say that they created it, because they did. But they don't technically have to say it's AI. At least that's what I'm pretty sure. I think that's true. A lot of them at the moment do say that they are AI created and AI generated, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the future we find decks that don't distinguish themselves as AI, even though they are. So if you're trying to avoid it, or if you would rather support a traditional small artist or however, that could present a challenge in the future. Okay, so I mentioned how AI decks were made, and now we're going to get into one of the biggest issues with AI art, especially in tarot decks. And that is that a lot of AI created images use stolen art. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the AI, the artificial intelligence, uses a database of images that it finds on the web, or that is given to it by whoever is using the algorithm. And it uses those images from other artists, even if they're not public domain. So this could be someone's work from DeviantArt, it could be someone's tarot deck that they created, it could be an indie creator, someone who isn't picked up by a big publisher and who would probably suffer the most when it comes to losing out on money that they could have been earning on their own work because somebody else stole it. And the thing is, the AI doesn't necessarily know, or doesn't necessarily think about stealing, because it's just doing what it's made to do. And one of the issues with it is that sometimes it can take stolen pieces of art from one image and then put it in another, or it just copies the image directly because that's what you're looking for, and now you have stolen art in a tarot deck. And a lot of artists are really upset about this, and rightfully so. As a person who's an indie publisher, I publish books on Amazon, I'm self-published, I'm an indie author. And so because I'm not covered and protected by a big publishing house, I have to maintain and control everything when it comes to my works, and I have to protect my works as best as I can, though there are many authors out there whose work gets stolen constantly. And it's the same for artists as well. Stolen work is just something that every creator has to keep in mind and expect sadly. And with AI becoming stronger and greater and just more prevalent, we're probably going to see a lot more stolen art, especially in tarot decks and oracle decks, where it seems like a lot of AI is just sort of making its way into this niche. Now, I also mentioned earlier that AI and AI art specifically can be produced very quickly. And I kind of touched on this with the self-checkout metaphor that I used, or example. I don't know. I've had a rough day, guys. My brain is fried. But because the AI art can be produced so quickly and it just uses works from other artists, it can easily put any up-and-coming artists or current artists, traditional artists in any sense of the word, it can put them out of business, essentially. It will take their job. If we are now making tarot decks with AI art, then is there even a point to having a traditional artist create a tarot deck? Especially if consumers are purchasing these AI versions over traditional versions. And we could argue that it's based on aesthetics and those just happen to be prettier than the traditional artists, maybe. And technically, I could see the future where those things don't have to be listed as AI, and so now people can purchase these. But I do see big corporations and brands taking advantage of this and creating more cash grabs, where they essentially pump out a new AI deck. They could probably do it every week, if not at least once a month, and that could easily overwhelm and flood the market when it comes to tarot, and it could leave a lot of traditional artists and their decks at the bottom of a list where people don't even see them. Of course, that all depends on consumer demand, and it does depend on what people are purchasing and what they're liking. I do think that there can be some intrigue to AI art, though I personally don't know if I'm ever going to purchase an AI art deck, because I don't know where those designs came from, and the last thing I want is stolen work in my deck. I don't want to be thinking about that when I'm using my tarot cards. And as a person who is a small publisher, or like a, small author, indie author, my heart goes out to other indie creators who they're pouring hours and hours of time into their work to create these beautiful decks, and I want to support them, and I don't want to support people who can pay pennies to create these AI generated materials and then just pump them out whenever and however fast they want. So as you might have gathered by now, AI has a lot of issues that come with it. Of course, it has, in a way, helped us a lot. Siri, I think, technically classifies as AI because you can ask her any question and she pulls it up on Google or whatever search platform you like. And I think that Bing's search engine with their AI is probably very helpful as well. But just like anything, there are pros and cons to using it. And I think that when it comes to AI art in tarot decks specifically, it does have me a little worried. Now, a big argument I see from a lot of people who support this AI movement and who really do value the AI art and the aesthetics that are in tarot decks, oracle decks, or just in general, one thing I see a lot is them saying it's still in its infancy and that AI art is nowhere near as professional or as detailed or as good as traditional art. So therefore, when you look at it, you can kind of tell that it's AI, you can tell that it's not quite right, and therefore you should be able to know as the consumer that it is AI, and you'll probably purchase traditional stuff over the AI art just because one has more detail and a more professional quality than the other one. But I would argue that that's just because it's in its infancy. And so long as we continue to explore AI, and so long as we continue to create art with it and hone its creations until we reach perfection, one day we will reach a place where it's near impossible to distinguish between the two of them. And there could be a point when it outperforms traditional art. I do think that there is importance in traditional art, and I think that there is importance in, supporting those who pour their lives, their souls, and hours of their time and energy into a project versus something that seems like it can happen within a week. And again, it's that stolen art that keeps coming back, and us having to ask ourselves if it's worth stealing someone else's creation in order to support your own or something that AI creates. Again, AI extends beyond art and it extends beyond tarot, but because it's already entered the tarot market, it has me really thinking about what tarot can look like in the future, especially for consumers who are trying to support small artists. And again, I know there's a mass market deck somewhere that used AI, unless it got removed or unless it's up and coming, and maybe that's why I can't find it. But all things considered, those decks do exist, and they are going to continue to exist, if not become more prevalent. The last point I want to make here is that I don't think AI art is as spiritually or emotionally impactful as traditional art. Now that's a personal opinion. Again, I really do think AI art is very pretty. I think that I like the crazy spacey, almost like fourth dimension sort of vibes that come with it. I like the weird faceless conglomerations of monsters and things that you tend to see in these, and the settings are always so beautiful and magical. And there's something very interesting about it not being quite realistic that I also, for some reason, enjoy. But I still don't think that it's as spiritual or emotional as a deck that was hand created by a person. And a big problem with AI is that it might not even depict what a tarot card means. You could have the Six of Pentacles and the AI might create a bush with 6 pentacles on the ground and a dinosaur behind it. But does that really mean what, or does that really represent what the Six of Pentacles means? Whereas somebody who's creating the deck by hand is more likely to try to convey that meaning in the deck. Obviously that's not always true. I do own a few decks where the choices are questionable, but I do think that for the most part a lot of traditional artists are trying to depict the tarot in a way that represents the tarot effectively and isn't just made for aesthetics. And the issue with AI art is that it can only take keywords to create an image, and so it's not always like correct. So if you see that art on a table, you might not immediately think of what the Six of Pentacles means, and you might be struggling to read with it. But then spiritually and emotionally, I feel like it just lacks that human touch, that human quality, and that's just a personal opinion. I have seen a few people commenting on AI decks, and again, I've only seen like a lot of indie decks, so I'm really sorry that I haven't been able to find that mass market one. But I have seen a lot of people commenting saying the same things, that it doesn't feel like a tarot deck. It doesn't feel spiritual or emotional. It feels very like distant, almost untouchable. And that could very well be a result of it being AI, but I don't know, it's just a personal opinion for me. Anyway, I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of differing opinions in my comments, which is honestly great, good. We should have a conversation about this. We should try to talk and figure out where AI fits into the art market or like the tarot market and how it fits in this niche. We should be talking to each other about how AI is used and what we expect of it going forward and what our worries are. And I personally don't know if I'm ever going to purchase an AI tarot deck. I might, and it could be accidental, it could be intentional, I have no idea. But at the moment, I don't really gravitate towards them, and I have a lot of conflicting opinions or like just reasons that I don't want to touch an AI deck, because I just feel like it lacks something that is so human and so reliant upon consciousness, and AI just doesn't have it. And of course, stolen art. So take that what you will. But yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and just see what you guys think about AI art and tarot. So anyway, thanks for coming to my rambling session. I'm tired and my brain is still fried, so without further ado, I will catch you next time.